Crisis intervention and active listening. This is really important in our work, so I urge you to really take your time on this video and grasp all the information. Defining crisis. It's a stressful situation that disrupts a person's ability to cope. A person might find their world shaky. Fears can bring uncertainty and discomfort as well as other possible feelings. If you can't think of a time where you've had some form of crisis, right? Think of if you have your driver's license. You're driving down the road and someone brakes really fast in front of you and you have to brake it. And then you have to decide what to do, right? That's your crisis. That is still a crisis. Think about you forgot to pay for gas, right? You leave the pump, you get a little ways down the road and you're like, oh my gosh, I forgot to pay for gas. Everything is going through your head, right? Everything is going through your head really fast. Like, I gotta get back there, I gotta go. All right, that's a crisis. Although it's a different type of crisis, it's still a crisis. I'm just trying to give you ideas of how different ideas of crisis. All right, here you go. Here's your time to think of a personal crisis. Again, if you haven't been a victim of domestic violence, sexual violence, been assaulted, you had some form of traumatic experience, or some form of crisis. This could be any kind of crisis. You name it, it can be a crisis. So, how did you feel? What did you do? Who was supportive? How did you cope? I want to know these things. So, of course, this is going to be on your worksheet. So when it comes to crisis intervention, we want to define the problem. Name it. I understand you're having a crisis right now. Is there anything I can do to help you with it? Ensuring current safety. This is hard to do over the phone. You can either be direct and ask, are you safe right now? What can I do to help you feel safe? Would you like to use a word, a code word, that would make you feel safe if I call you back? Provide support and validation. Examine options and alternatives. Can they get out of the situation they're in? Can they call a friend? Can they meet with us on Monday? And then, you make a plan. You make a plan to meet with them. You make a plan for them to come in the office on Monday. You make a plan as far as a safety plan even. Make a list of who they can call, who they trust, who they can call. Give them numbers for law enforcement, the emergency room, that kind of thing. All those things are considered in making a safety plan. So, a victim and survivor has 4 basic needs. Safety and security. They want to feel safe. They need to feel safe. If they don't feel safe, they're going to continue in the circle of crisis. Ventilation and validation. They want to be heard. They want to be believed. If they can't vent to us, who are they going to vent to? I mean, if they're going to go vent to their offender and be like, you did this to me, you did this, it can make the situation a lot worse. And by not validating their experience, can make them think, okay, well, nobody's going to believe me. Or I'm making this out bigger than it needs to be. When really, if they've just experienced sexual assault, it should not be minimized. Prediction and preparation. Knowing the options and the possible outcomes. So you can never know exactly what is going on with them in that moment, especially if they're on the phone. But let's predict that they're out on a street, rainy, right? Where are they going to go? we have to know those options, and we have to try to guess the outcome. If I give this person the Churches United phone number, I will hope that they will call them and get there and be somewhere safe. Information and education. This comes into our resources, right? Churches United. Do they need gas? Can we get them a gas card? Statistics. We don't want to throw statistics in victims' faces, but let them know that they're not alone, that there are other people that are going through these same things. What is the victim feeling in crisis? Anger. This is often hidden behind the expression of other feelings. My favorite quote is by Dr. Phil, that anger is often the outward manifestation of hurt, sadness, and frustration. So being directed, being angry at someone else is often those other feelings in there also. Anxiety is the response which can mobilize a person for action. Greater anxiety, however, produces confusion, poor judgment, questionable decision-making, self-defeating behavior. Helplessness. This is a common feeling. We need to encourage a person through some action that can counteract these helpless feelings. Guilt and shame. This is mainly due to the feelings of incompetence and needing to depend on others. Ambivalence. The reaction may cause or need to regain control while there is a loss of control. Since normal coping ability is challenging in a crisis, individuals need to find what works for them. They're doing what they know in the moment, and whether these may seem like horrible feelings, that's what they're doing in the moment to cope with what they're going through. All right, intervention strategies. Let's talk about the likely course of reaction, emphasizing that each person is unique, but that there are some common responses sexual violence victims have reported. So providing information relating cues to terror and panic reactions, helping victims and survivors relate cues that may produce increased reactions that make them feel like they're going crazy, and lead them to work towards desensitizing that specific cue. So maybe they feel like someone's following them. We need to desensitize that cue, right? Normalize reactions. Many sexual assault victims experience flashbacks. Have you had any? Just letting them know that these are common things that do happen. Facilitate verbal desensitization. Let the victim talk as much as possible about the assault and how they are feeling. This can help with any denial that they may be feeling. Find out whether the victim or survivor has anyone else to talk to, any other support networks. Maybe they have a significant other they haven't told yet. And just kind of there to protect them, really. If the victim and survivor does not want to talk, let him know that that's okay. And if they maybe don't want to talk to one of us, maybe they want to talk to someone else. There's always someone else that can take over. Continuing with intervention strategies. Discuss concerns. John, I'm really concerned about your drinking, and I know this is the way you're coping, but I am concerned about it. Putting it out there, you want to have that concerned voice. You don't want to be like, you know what, John, I'm concerned about your drinking. You don't want to have the aggressive voice. Gather resources. If you're concerned about John's drinking, get a list of AA groups. Get a list of chemical dependency treatment programs. Get a list of maybe residential programs like Pine Manor up by Park Rapids. Get those lists. And maybe, just maybe, he'll reach out. Or he wants you to reach out because he's too afraid to reach out. We also have a handout that is handling the crisis stage. And then assess for the need for a referral. Referrals only go out if the victim wants you to do so. Then you need to have a release signed. So in the paperwork, we'll talk about the release of information. But at this time, like, just keep that in your mind. Like, referrals only go out if they want them. If Johnny doesn't want to go to residential treatment, you are not going to call them and be like, hey, I have John here and he wants to go to residential, because he doesn't. You're essentially trying to force them into that. Alright, I got a little song for you. So hold patient, hold tight, get ready for this.
Are you listening today?
Blah, 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 blah.
Gotta hear those words, okay?
Blah, 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 blah.
Listen up and you'll see
Blah, 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 blah.
that you'll have a better week. Good friends really listen. Good friends really
I
hear.
don't care.
Good friends pay attention, and they have ears to hear. Blah, 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 blah. Listen up, don't be rude. Blah, 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 blah. No bad attitude. Blah, 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 blah. Don't just walk away. Blah, 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 blah. Gotta hear those words I say. Good friends really listen. Good friends really hear. Good friends pay attention, and they have ears to hear. Blah, 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 blah. I see you're listening now. Blah, 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 blah. So I will take a little bow.
Thank you for listening. You're talking to me.
Alright, what do you think of that? Pretty awesome. We are going to talk about active listening. Well, I hope you enjoyed that song. Now we're going to get into a little bit of the deep stuff in active listening. Trust. So, each of us has the ability and power to make our own decisions and resolve our own problems. The ability is empowering and crucial in sexual violence and victims and survivors' recovery. An advocate's role is to help the victim and survivor explore those feelings of action. The decisions are always theirs to make. Acceptance. We must listen and accept the victim's or survivor's feelings, even if we wish they weren't their feelings, or believe that we'd feel differently in that situation. Accepting literally everything they are saying. Empathy. If you're not familiar with the term, the definition, empathy is literally you're putting yourself in someone else's shoes. You're feeling what they're feeling. You're believing what they're believing. Their reality is your reality in that moment. It is important not to get caught up in the caller's emotions and lose your ability to respond to their crisis. But if you better understand what they're going through, just kind of, take a step back and just listen and, work through it with them as if you were them and you were wanting someone to work through it with you, right? Respect. We all want respect. We have to respect their right to confidentiality, their decisions, and how to get them on their way, whether they, choose to go with maybe your option. Open versus closed questions. Sometimes there's a good for a yes and no question. Are you safe right now? Yes. Why are you not safe right now? Well, my offender's still here. you know, it's a different way of wording a question where you can still get a good valid answer out of them. Listen for feelings. Sometimes they're not good about saying how they feel. Maybe it's I don't know, or I don't care, or they just have a different way of expressing those feelings. So just kind of paying attention to some of the keywords, and you might get how they're feeling. So, skills for understanding, listening, using your ears, not your mouth. You are literally listening to everything they're saying, but also listening can be, all right, I heard this, I understand this, and then we're leading into this, and then we're going to reflect on what the person was saying, and then we're going to summarize. This lets them know they're being heard. They're being understood. So when it comes to listening, attending, paraphrasing, clarifying, perception checking. Perception checking is maybe what I perceive happened, but I have to take that and I have to be like, okay, this isn't about me. This isn't about my perception of the situation. This is about, I am listening to this person tell me these things. I am paraphrasing what they are saying, and I am clarifying what they are saying. That way, my perceptions of the situation aren't getting in the way. Leading, we have indirect. So this can be such phrases as, why are you here? Please tell me more about that. How did that make you feel? What do you think that means? Direct. What do you mean when you feel frustrated? What is making you feel frustrated? Those are more of the direct questions. Focusing is if they're going from one topic to another topic to another topic to another topic, bringing them back to that first topic. Like, okay, let's focus on this. Or which one do you want to focus on right now? And questioning. Questioning really leads to open-ended questions. How are you feeling right now? Why are you feeling this way? What can I do to help you to get you out of this crisis at this moment? This leaves options up to them. This leaves them more room for discussion and more talk. You might get more information this way. So that's questioning is definitely a good route to go. Reflecting. So we're reflecting on their feelings. We're reflecting on what they told us. And we're reflecting on their experience. We really have to take everything they're saying and let them know they are being heard. If they know they're being heard and they're being understood and we're reflecting properly on what they said, they're going to be more trusting of us. They're going to feel better in the relationship they built with us. So summarizing, it enables victims and survivors to feel the sense of accomplishment and closure, to be aware that he or she has been heard and understood. It's also a final check-in with them, to, hey, how do things look now? Let's see what we've talked about. How can we bring up the conversation without it hurting at this moment? Just checking in with them before you hang up with them on the crisis line, or if they come into office and they're in crisis. Just kind of check in with them. Where are you at right now from when you came in? It's a good way to measure their crisis at the moment. So there are some ways and some things we can avoid, question techniques to avoid. We'll go a little bit more further into this in just a moment. Alright, so questions we want to avoid: asking multiple questions at once. I know when I'm asked multiple questions at once, I often remember either the first question or the last question, and not all the questions in between. Avoid questions that are off topic and irrelevant. This may come into play when maybe they're telling their story and you ask them an irrelevant question and it gets them off topic. When they're telling their story, instead of, possibly re-traumatizing them and have them tell their story again, just keep them on topic. About the only times we ever go off topic is, do you have a dog? If they're having something done in the exam where they need to kind of have their mind drawn away from the specific thing, or there's some downtime, maybe asking, do you have a dog? What do you like to do for fun? That kind of thing. Avoid questions that abruptly change the flow. Avoid why questions. They can cause defensiveness. For example, why were you there? Why were you hanging out with this person? Why did you let this happen to you? We obviously never ever want to ask those questions. And avoid imposing values. We also want to avoid questions that make the victim or survivor feel defensive. Avoid questions that assume there is only one answer. We can never ever assume there's only one answer. They may have multiple answers for a question. Avoid things that cut off feelings, that just you're not validating if you're cutting them off. And avoid making assumptions.